Well, it's difficult for me because I work within history. My job is to bring the past alive to the present. So quite a lot of what I read is actually not fiction, it's non-fiction. It's those historians who do the kind of deep vein mining to find the stories which I can then turn into fiction. But so obviously also I have heroines and heroes within those people who've stepped my ground before me. So when I was growing up as a young woman, there was an extraordinary writer called Mary Renault, who happened also to be gay in a time when that wasn't easy to be, and quite a powerful woman, lived in South Africa all of her life, and wrote a series of books about the Greek myths and Knossos and stuff which you just couldn't read anywhere else. It was dry history until it got into her hands. So I always had huge imagination. I always had huge admiration for people whose imaginations could move backwards in time as well as recreate the present. You don't, when you're writing, you don't read other novelists because the temptation to become an unwilling ventriloquist is just far too powerful. You need to spend a lot of time in your own psyche, however bleak and dismal and upsetting that place may sometimes be. So you only come out and read fiction during the brief period before you plunge back into creating your own. And then it's kind of like a series of star bursts on you. So for instance, I remember very clearly the moment when I read not this Rose Tremaine, but another Rose Tremaine, a book called Restoration, many years ago, which was set during the reign of Charles II. And I was completely gobsmacked by the kind of mix of erudition and wit and emotional imagination and an ability to kind of bring alive the past. And I had a similar feeling when I read a book by Umberto Eco, which was for many, many years an extremely famous book. It's slightly fallen out of fashion now, a book called Name of the Rose, which managed to make a detective thriller out of a secret book in a medieval library in a monastery in the middle of the Alps. So it is that mix of information, imagination, and sheer kind of chutzpah that makes reading such a pleasure. You work until everything you read you already know. And after you think you know it all, then you just, a bit like a kind of suicide attempt, you launch yourself off a high building to see how far you're going to fall without realizing you need to go back to your research. And then I suspect that writing the kind of fiction I write is like writing any kind of fiction. You get lost, and getting lost and being frightened and not knowing what you're doing is part of the process of discovering what a book is about. I sometimes think being a writer is a bit like being a long-distance marathon runner. Or swimming the channel. You know, for a period of time you can still look back and see England, so you feel comforted, and then you get out into really heavy seas in the middle, and there's no point going back. You just have to carry on till you start to see France. So I think there's a lot of stamina as well as a lot of imagination goes into writing, and you have to quite like your own company, or even when you don't like your own company, not be tempted to go out and have a boozy evening with your friends, because you still have to stay with the problem and sort it out. And I never watch the clock. I have never in my whole life watched a clock. A good writing day is a day when around about 3 o'clock, and the only reason I know it's 3 o'clock is because I am suddenly ravenously hungry and realise that I haven't eaten and that I have to go down and eat something. And I think it's that completely getting lost in something that you have to call your own imagination, even when it feels sterile and painful and isn't giving you very much. And that's a wonderful feeling. I don't exactly know where I am, but I know I'm not here and now. And that's magic. Yeah, I get up, I go to the gym, I come back, I have a cup of coffee, and I sit at the typewriter or I sit at the computer. And I don't get up until I'm too tired to not be able to do any more. So I kind of drive myself quite hard, but even in the pain, it's pleasure. I mean, writing is not working in a coal mine. You're writing in the coal mine of your own imagination, and that can be quite hard imaginative work. But otherwise, I don't think there's a job to touch it.